I have two examples of where I did a check-in recently to check something in. And the reason I check things in for me now is to create safety. The faster I check something in, the less it's a secret, the less power it has over me.
Yeah.
It kind of cuts through any obsessive thinking. So I'll give you two quick examples. One, I was on Twitter, which that in and of itself could be problematic for a lot of people. But I was on, I'm a big basketball fan of the Loyola Ramblers, which is my college team. And so I'm always on there, reading fan posts. And right now, guys are moving around different schools, and it's called the portal season where people are transferring. Right. And so I'm on there. One guy is going to transfer, and he said, they mention it. And there's a commenter who I see posts sort of a funny comment, and I click on the profile, and it turns out it's not a real person. It's probably a bot. And there's just all these kind of sexy pictures of this kind of avatar, or whatever this person, I don't even know if it's a real person. I have no idea. And immediately my brain goes into like, oh my gosh, and I'm shocked. And then I click out of it. I click back into it because almost like, did I see what I thought I saw? And immediately I'm like, oh my gosh, I never get into trouble with Twitter. I never cross these boundaries. This is like, I've just opened up Pandora's box a little bit for myself. So immediately I start thinking, I need to make a phone call.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I don't, there's going to be this pull to go back to misuse Twitter again. Right? Oh, let me find that comment. Let me find that comment again. Let me click on it.
Totally.
Let me go deeper. So I fired off a message. You got time for a 5-minute check-in to one of the coaches that I work with. And, sure enough, we jumped on. I checked it in. As soon as I checked it in, I felt completely back to normal, right back to the restoration state. Like, okay, no secrets. I have a plan for how to handle it. Obviously if I kept doing that with Twitter, I would get rid of it. But I don't misuse Twitter. So, so that was one. That was one. The other one was, my wife went to a spa the other day with her friends, and it's one of these Korean spas where, they all get in the hot tub naked or whatever. And she just mentioned it, and immediately my brain started going in started going to overload. And I actually stopped her and I said, listen, when you just shared just now, my brain just started like undressing the people you were with. Like, and she was like, oh, really? Like, it didn't even occur to her. Right.
Yeah.
But when I shared it with her, I go, this is important for me to share with you because I feel like I'm keeping a secret. I feel like I'm starting to withdraw into myself, into fantasy. And so I'm going to talk about this. And then if I have more thoughts about this, here's the steps I'm going to take. Yep. And what was interesting was I did think about it a couple more times, but it was much more manageable. And one of the things that helped me was I'm not keeping a secret here.
Yes.
I've already told Janice about this.
Yeah. I'm
not giving this any room to take, to take any root. Mm-hmm. And I felt good about it. Right. So, but those two things, right, in the past, I would have completely ignored.
Yeah.
Right. A passing thought was my wife's sharing,
right,
or a little, accidental, clickbait type thing on Twitter. Mm-hmm. I would have totally ignored those early in my recovery.
Yeah.
And not even thought to check those in.
Yeah. I think those are great examples, Matt, because I think a lot of people that have struggled in this area can relate and go, yeah, those are the seeds that give birth to destructive fruit in my life. And I've got to start seeing, where do the seeds get planted and do good work then? And that's, really the next question, what it's all about. For men and women that are in recovery, these patterns have been familiar to us. We've maybe been in some of these patterns for years and decades. And so edging behavior might almost be some ingrained responses because of years of struggle. So how can men and women become more aware of the potential for edging and aware of when they're starting to do that?
Well, I think one of the things to look at is to ask yourself, does any action that you're taking, where is it heading? What direction are you facing? Because, for example, I could be on Twitter looking at Loyola basketball portal news, and I'm not edging. I'm not kind of showing up with that. Or I can be on that site and start having this sort of mindset like, oh, I'm looking for something extra here, right? I'm on the news site and I'm scrolling to the bottom looking for something.
Yeah.
Looking for an opportunity to edge.
Yeah.
So I think asking yourself, what direction am I going is a good thing to ask yourself. One of the things I say on my podcast, I was working with a guy in New Hampshire once. And I don't know a lot about that East Coast geography. And so I said to him, I was just trying to give him an example of a state line. And I was trying to talk about the state line between relapse and recovery. And I go, how far are you from the state line of Massachusetts? And he said, like 30 miles. And I go, how far are you from the city of Boston? 60 miles. I said, okay. So let's think of Boston as a full-blown relapse, right? If you get all the way to Boston, you've relapsed with porn. But let's go back 30 miles to that state line. What's the state between kind of maybe being a little bored or being, maybe being a little, procrastinating or just kind of in that state where you could go one way or the other. And then you take a step across the line, right? You do a search, you start to dabble in something that's unskillful. That's the thing we want to start getting good at seeing. Mm-hmm. What state am I in right now? Am I in a relapse state? That's why I love the faster scale, right? Am I forgetting priorities or dropping commitments or speeding up, or is anxiety starting to take over? Mm-hmm. Am I reacting, right? All those things are great indications of what state you're in. Because if you're in one of those relapse states, if you've kind of crossed the line, it doesn't matter if you've looked at porn yet or not. This is the time to figure out how to turn the car around and get back into that healthy state.
And what I love that you're talking about is the importance of identifying our patterns. And we have a tool in our resources called the Matrix of Addiction that helps us look at where does the pattern of relapse, or maybe even the direction that you're facing. Are you headed toward relapse or toward restoration? It helps you identify that, and so that you can start putting guardrails around the front end. And so I think that that's such an important piece to becoming aware of these edging behaviors and maybe where they are in our pattern. But I also love what you were saying earlier in the last question, was that secrecy, if you feel that pull toward isolation, toward keeping secrets, toward not being honest, I think that's a good indicator that this behavior might be edging. If you're on your phone or on Twitter and your spouse walks in the room and you feel you kind of turn to where you're hiding your screen from your spouse or from someone else, okay, that's a good indicator. Secrecy is there's something that you either feel guilty about or shame about that you're wanting to keep to yourself. And I think that if we can start to identify some of those areas or maybe activities that we do, that we hold that secrecy or feel that pull toward it, that's also, I think, a good indicator that we're edging.